When Dr. King stepped out on that podium in our nation's capital talking to 200,000 people directly and millions indirectly, as a black man, um, it changed everything. Because in a second and for a moment, I was transformed into unlimited possibilities. My room had just gotten exponentially larger. My community became the world. My city was Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. My stage was anything I wanted to do. It was an unleashing of possibilities. I think that the most dangerous person in the world is a person with no hope. Ambassador Andrew Young would tell me, John, be skeptical, but don't be cynical. Because if you're cynical, you've lost hope. And so I think that you have to have constructive friction. You've got to push and all that kind of stuff. And you've got to even question, but you shouldn't doubt. And here was unmitigated enthusiasm, unmitigated passion, unmitigated hope. Even in the face of adversity, in the face of challenge, in the face of problems, in the face of criticisms, he leaded and loved in spite of, not because of. He gave you no excuses for why you couldn't get up and go get off your rear end and go do something not just good, but great. What I have learned since 1963 is you can have a gift like Dr. King and Andrew Young and John Lewis and Reverend Lowry and all of these heroes and sheroes, Dr. Dorothy Height and others, and they can set up success and put it right in front of you, give you a winning culture, a winning attitude, a winning game plan, and then you can actually still throw it away. We've got too many so-called leaders today that say basically, I'm tired of talking about me, now you talk about me. And that's a prescription for failure. I think Quincy Jones once said that it takes 20 years to change a culture. I'd argue in the last 20 years we've made dumb sexy. We've dumbed down and celebrated it. And we've got to make smart sexy again. I think Dr. King made smart sexy. I think Andrew Young made smart sexy. I think the civil rights movement made smart sexy. I think that's one of the reasons that it's such an alluring, timeless era that we keep harking back to. It wasn't just the suits, it was the spirit that made you feel that you had the right to put the suit on and walk down the street with pride and dignity and to demand that people respect your elders and so on and so forth. It was saying yes ma'am and yes sir and feeling good about that to grandma and grandpa. And I think that we've lost our way because we've lost our values and we've made the wrong things important. The dream today is different from the dream in 1962, 64, 65, 68, in a very basic way. In the 20th century, Dr. King was not alone in his movement for rights. The movement around the world was democracy. The world was moving at jet-like speed, to quote Dr. King, towards democracy. You had Gandhi in India. You had Michael Collins in Ireland. You had, of course, Nelson Mandela later on in South Africa. You had leaders all around the world moving toward democracy. Now, how do you and me codify democracy in our hands? It's the right to vote. I mean, how do you empower somebody and translate this amorphous dream into something tangible and have it to metamorphose in people's life? That had to be the right to vote. Move to the 21st century, and the thing that is literally defining the world is economics and business. Economics, business, and money. Literally defining the landscape of the world, and in most cases hijacking those landscapes by people being obsessed with getting rich. So one could argue that if you don't understand the language of money today, financial literacy, and you don't have a bank account today, you're an economic slave. 40 million people today in the richest country in the world, the United States of America, don't have a bank account. 40 million people today, according to the FDIC, are either unbanked or underbanked. More people today don't have a bank account that didn't have the right to vote in 1962. 26 million people, actually much less than that because it was really the southern states that was restricting the right to vote, but 26 million people, give or take, didn't have the right to vote technically in '62. 40 million people in the richest country in the world today don't have a bank account. And if you don't understand the language of money and you can't access mainstream financial services, you are, as a friend of mine would say, screwed. You are really in bad shape. You cannot fulfill any of your dreams, and you cannot, let's not even get on with running a family. Number one cause of divorce in America is money. But I think the rainbows follow storms. In fact, I know as a scientific fact, you cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. So maybe it takes these problems and these challenges and the fraying families and the 70% of black households run by women and the horrible rates of dropouts by young black men, the tragedy of black on black crime, and the gang violence in places like Chicago, and young people losing their lives at alarming rates because of a lack of hope. Maybe it takes all this to shake us, to bring us back to our senses, to make us want to watch the Dr. King speech and say, that's us. That's us. We can do that again. We can recapture the magic. We have got to get out of the dreaming business now. We got to get into the doing business, because the doing business is the dream made real. My name is John Hope Bryant, founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Operation Hope, chairman of the Committee on the Underserved for the President's Council on Financial Capability for President Barack Obama, author. I'm also 46 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, from Los Angeles, California.